Lance, Lynn, and the Chicago White Sox were embarrassed in Kansas City on Wednesday night. They lost to the Royals 9-1. Lynn had a miserable performance and is doing a very good Dallas Keuchel 2022 impression, or maybe even John Danks from 2016. Sox offense was just as disappointing. The White Sox will now try for a split for the, for now, last place Royals on Thursday afternoon with Mike Clevinger on the Hill.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our White Sox take on the Kansas City Royals on Thursday. Mike Clevinger on the Hill for the Sox. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Wow. Our White Sox are 13-25. It was a pathetic game Wednesday night at Kauffman Stadium. Sox lost to the Royals 9-1. Oh, man, almost no words. Absolutely speechless while watching, some of Lance Lynn's just offerings with two strikes. We're going to get to the details later on in this episode. I mean, he was throwing batting practice. I mean, it wasn't even competitive. He just looks, he looks off, more than off. He looks confused. I don't know if he knows what's going on. And after a game like Wednesday, boy, I have to go back to these quotes by our fearless leader, General Manager Rick Hahn. This year seems different to me, Hahn said. This year seems different just from the level of energy, the level of focus, and the commitment. Just eager to get going to show that last year was an aberration and that wasn't who we are. And we're going to be back on track to the team we saw in 2020 and 21 and regain our place among the teams that are contending for championships. We know we have something to prove, that we belong there, and look forward to get going on that. Boy, it is different. It's worse. That's the problem. It's absolutely worse. And here I thought, last year at this time, the Sox kind of floundering, pretty mediocre. I'm like, wait a second, this team won the Central easily in 2021. What is happening with these guys? We had some injuries, but it just didn't seem like there was any life. But they were around 500 at this time. We are 13-25. So here's another fun one from Rick Hahn. This, of course, from this past offseason. There's reason to believe in this group, and we weren't going to simply make changes for the sake of making changes. It's betting on the talent that's in there, the manager and the coaching staff put in the best position to succeed, and hopeful that some of the alterations we made will improve our luck from a health standpoint. Well, there were some roster moves. There was some stuff going on. Once again, last week ago back where they had that big 11 roster move situation. There was some roster moves before Wednesday's game. And there's probably going to be some more roster moves before the homestand. But honestly. I mean, some of these roster moves, it's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic at this point. Sox designated right-hander Alex Colome, or Alexander Colome, for assignment and selected the contract of outfielder Jake Marisnick from AAA Charlotte on Wednesday. Per a team announcement, Marisnick will join the active roster as veteran outfielder Billy Hamilton heads to the 10-day injured list due to a hamstring strain. Chicago has also recalled righty Nick Padilla from Charlotte. We saw Padilla in the game on Wednesday. Ozzie Guillen had some interesting comments in the NBC Sports Chicago pregame on the Billy Hamilton hamstring strain. I mean, he was beside himself that Billy Hamilton, after running hard in 2 or 3 different scenarios, pulled a hamstring. It was actually quite comical. Always is when Ozzie Guillen just absolutely lets it go. And he had some interesting thoughts. He almost alluded, and I don't want to, I'm putting words into his mouth maybe here, but it seemed like he was alluding maybe to that it wasn't actually a hamstring strain. They were just sending him away and bringing up Jake Marisnick. Marisnick, he was out to a slashing 264, 407, 391 in Charlotte so far this season, but over the past 5 big league seasons, Marisnick is a 228 to 285, 406 hitter. Also, Jake Berger is cleared to start his rehab assignment, and Oscar Colas is he's mashing the ball in AAA, and that is great to see. And I'm just wondering, does it even matter at this point? But I guess maybe wondering out loud, and now to all of you, and maybe you can have these conversations with other White Sox fans in your life. Come at me with some comments on lockdownsox@gmail.com. We can bring it to a mailbag episode, but wondering if what would have happened if Oscar Colas just started, the season in AAA. He didn't have a lot of time down there at all. And there were some folks that were saying, if I had my choice, I would like to see Colas get some, get a couple weeks down there before he faces big league pitching. And again, we'll never know, but what would happen hypothetically if Colas did start in AAA and got his confidence up, and he was able to handle pitches, and just got himself going, and then came to the big league level. We'll never know. It was big league level right away. Sox didn't make any big additions to right field. Fan in the flames and the Oscar Colas hype. Had a decent spring training, earned a spot, and he scuffled as he would. He was the whole season was gonna be an issue, but they knew that. They had to know that. So demoting him because he wasn't able to handle major league pitching, I just felt like that wasn't the right way to handle it. Anyway, I'm glad he's doing well in AAA. Hopefully he does come back up soon and can keep that hot bat up on the south side. Wondering what they're going to do with him, though, in right field. Are they going to hand him the position, just like that, and say, well, we're back to the old days. You're going to be our go-to right fielder, even against lefties. We'll talk about some of those matchups here in a little bit, because there's a lot of rearranging that's going to have to be done with this lineup if Moncada comes back soon. So the Alexander Colome reunion, the short-lived reunion, I always thought that was kind of bizarre. He tossed 3 innings with 4 runs allowed, 2 of them earned on 2 hits and 3 walks. His 93.9 mile per hour average fastball in that time tied a career low from the 2021 season. So I believe I've got this number right. He's the 3rd reliever since the season started that has been DFA'd. You had Ruiz, and then of course Diekman, who has been picked up by the Rays. We'll see what he does with see what the Rays do with him, and then now Colome. So Sox scrambling. What does it feel like? A desperation move? It's sometimes, by grabbing Colome like they did, it just seemed like, they're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what's going to stick. I mean, I guess they're doing something. They're trying to do something, but the tools that they have are just not the right tools. It's like you've got this toolbox of a bunch of incorrect tools, and you just keep shuffling through. Well, maybe this one works. I'm trying different things. It's just you didn't have the right stuff to begin with, and that's a whole off-season issue. So they just don't have a lot of choices right now. So things will be interesting, I think, when everybody does get healthy, if that happens. You've got Sheets, Jimenez, we're being told, might play a little bit in right field, and then Colas. So is it going to be, a carousel? Is it just still going to be Oscar Colas's position? I mean, how are you going to get Sheets those at bats, and what are you going to do with Jimenez? Because, he is resting his legs now while he's also recovering from the appendectomy. So his legs can be ready to play a position he should never be playing. And then you've got the DH position. You've got Berger. You got Sheets possibly at DH. You got Jimenez. And then Sebi has been playing, pretty good catcher, pretty reliable back there. It seems to be earning some trust, especially from a guy like Giolito, who's kind of his go-to catcher. Yaz has still got some pop in the bat. But are you trusting more Sebi behind the plate? So then you're going to want Yaz. You're going to want that bat as a DH, but you've got all these other DH options that you want to keep getting, at bats to. Because again, if you're not getting consistent at bats, I think there's going to be a problem. Jake Berger talked about it, recently. It's like, well, if I'm not getting consistent at bats, I just can't get into the groove, whether it's lefty or righty. Eloy Jimenez spoke on it last year when he was kind of playing a few games, and then they would sit him to try to rest him and then play a few. He just could not get into a rhythm. Ozzie said on the Score, I believe it was on Wednesday, that the White Sox could win the division, and essentially it's coming down because it's a bad division. But the White Sox are slowly finding themselves creeping towards the cellar that is right now occupied by the Royals, but it's maybe a couple games difference. In terms of runs scored, they mentioned on the pregame, the White Sox are the highest ranked AL Central team coming into Wednesday's game. And that's great and all. But second most earned runs given up in all of baseball. And that was on display Wednesday night. Lance Lynn continues to confuse fans and maybe even himself. He had another forgettable outing, and the offense could not help him out. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you, with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Forget months of planning in advance. Game Time has deals on the tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. The Chicago White Sox play the Cincinnati Royal Kansas City. I wish we were playing Cincinnati again, especially that Sunday game. Sox playing the Kansas City Royals on Thursday. Mike Clevinger on the hill. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Sox lost to the Royals. It was embarrassing. 9-1 on Wednesday at Kauffman Stadium. It was Lance Lynn against Brad Keller. That Brad Keller, that TA bat flip turned him into a bobblehead, Brad Keller from several years ago. Coming into Wednesday's game, Sox offense, 16 home runs in the last 11 games, 10 of 16 with runners on base, 6 multi-home run games. home runs in 9 straight games, the longest of the season. Everything went cold for the Sox on Wednesday night. It was ugly. Top of first, Anderson was back in the lineup. Good to see that the legs are feeling good. He had a leadoff walk. Can the Sox make Keller pay? That's what I was wondering. Benintendi drew a walk, so you got 2 on, nobody out. Andrew Vaughn hit into a 5-4-3 double play. Tim Anderson to third. Luis Robert Jr. can't lay off a couple of pretty good sliders from Keller, then struck out on a 3-2 slider to end the inning. That was a theme for Robert all night long. Bottom of first, horrible inning for Lance Lynn. I was tracking Lynn's approach when he had 2 strikes on a hitter throughout his outing. The first inning was just altogether bad. He had Pasquantino 0-2 and then threw him a fastball that did not have any movement, caught the inside half of the plate, and it was ripped for a double down the right field line. Salvi Perez destroyed a non-competitive sinker for a double. Royals got on the board early. Lynn had Melendez 3-2, another belt-high offering from Lynn that was mashed to right field. Prado had solid contact to drive in the second run of the inning for Kansas City. Lynn's 2 strike pitches were completely not competitive, and his approach early on was just basically throwing everything in the zone with 0 movement. And Royals make contact. Third run scored on an error by Andrus at second base. Lynn had Massey 0-2. Another 2-strike base hit given up. Everything was in the zone, not just 2-strike pitches. It was 4-0 Royals. So 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 0 strikeouts, 37 pitches for Lynn after the first. Top of second, Sox had runners on the corners with nobody out. Alberto with an RBI, a single to get the Sox on the board. Lots of opportunities to add more, but the Sox were not able to. It was 4-1 Kansas City at that point. Bottom second, it looked like the approach and mindset was adjusted. Lance Lynn went to the outside corner to strike out Perez, and then he took something off his cutter to get Melendez. Lynn had a 1-2-3 inning. Top of third, Sox went very quietly. Luis Robert Jr. with his second strikeout of the game. Keller absolutely had his number, and that number was a slider out of the zone, and he kept dialing it. Bottom of the third, Lynn looked more comfortable using his changeup effectively on the corners, mixed up speeds and eye level, which was nice. Had Duffy 0-2 with 2 outs and went a few inches outside, got him to chase. That is absolutely where Lance Lynn has to live with 2 strikes, 59 pitches after 3 innings. Top of 4, Keller. Brad Keller did not have overpowering stuff, but he kept the White Sox off balance with his slider. Kind of, like how Greinke did. Greinke just kept you off balance. He knew he wasn't going to overpower you with his fastball. Just 2 hits for the White Sox through 4 innings. Bottom of 4, Massey destroyed a 2-0 fastball that was absolutely middle for a solo home run. 5-1 Royals. I mean, Royals were hitting the ball hard, but again, that's what you do when you see a pitch in the zone, time after time again. Luis Robert Jr. Saved it from being a bigger inning with flash some leather. 78 pitches through 4 innings for Lynn. Let's go bottom 5. Lynn gave up a leadoff walk. Then Prado hit a laser to right field for a 2-run home run. It was 7-1 Royals. I mean, this was a batting practice fastball right down Main Street. Lynn's performance on Wednesday was pathetic. Top of 6, Kansas City went to the bullpen. Vaughn with a leadoff single. Third strikeout for Robert on a pitch nowhere near the zone. Bottom 6, Sox in the bullpen. Padilla, who they just recently called up. The Royals tacked another run off of him. And then the bottom of the 7th, Royals did not stop. A home run off of Padilla made it 9-1 Kansas City. So Lance Lynn's final line, 5 innings, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 2 home runs. His ERA, 7.51. I believe it's among worst of all MLB starters. So Lance Lynn is putting up, some John Danks 2016 type of vibes. If you remember that season, Danks started maybe 0-4, 0-6 in the year, and then he was DFA'd. Obviously, Dallas Keuchel from 2022, those types of numbers. And Keuchel was DFA'd in the summer. Lance Lynn just does not look good. And he really, he had that outing against Tampa where he took the no-hitter into the seventh, but he's just getting hit because he's throwing everything into the zone. None of it has movement. It's not a competitive approach. And boy, the Royals, that's been talked about throughout this whole series. Benetti and Stone talking about the Royals. They hit on 2 strikes. They make contact. That is a new approach from last year. And it was almost like Lance Lynn's like, I don't care. I know what your approach is, but I'm just going to throw it right down the middle. It had to be misses. There's no way that could really be what he was trying to do. But, it happened over and over and over on Wednesday night. I don't know what Lance Lynn's future is like, but I don't have a lot of confidence in him bouncing back. Sox offense, 1 run, 6 hits, 0 extra base hits. Sox were 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. So coming into the game, Luis Robert Jr., pretty hot, 8-game hitting streak, slashing 462, 588, 923, 3 doubles, 3 home runs, and 8 RBIs. Scott Merkin had some stuff that he maybe will turn into an article, but he was putting some quotes out on Twitter on Wednesday. And this was a quote, literally an actual quote from Luis Robert on plate approach. Honestly, I just checked the speed of the pitches that the pitcher has. The pitcher I'm facing that day has. There is too much information that I don't like to look at. To me, the simpler, the better. Well, that's good, but I would just suggest maybe check to see if the starter has a good slider or just a slider, just to watch out for that. On Wednesday, Robert was 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. Never in my wildest dreams. Well, I shouldn't say wildest dreams because it is, this has been the 2023 season, and everything that we've seen, I just would have never predicted. I just didn't think we'd be talking about the Sox needing to win on Thursday afternoon to walk away with a split, but here we are. 2023 wrapped up into one series. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Series finale on Thursday afternoon in Kansas City at Kauffman Stadium. You got Mike Clevinger on the mound. Clevinger has a 9-0 record with an ERA of 1.98 and 87 strikeouts in 14 appearances against the Royals in his career. Now, Clevinger has not faced the Royals since 2020 when he was with Cleveland, but some pretty impressive numbers there. If it means anything, we'll see. This year so far, Clevinger is 2-3 with an ERA of 4.84, 33 strikeouts in 7 appearances this season. Last start was against Cincy. He went 6 innings, gave up 4 earned runs. Sox lost that middle game. in that series against the Reds. We'll be keeping an eye on how Clevinger manages a two-strike approach. Hopefully it's competitive. Hopefully he's on the corners, mixing up the eye levels. Sox absolutely have to win this game, and then maybe 20 more after that, and when we can start talking about this season feeling a little bit different, as Rick Hahn had to say. Folks, thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get those questions and comments in. Maybe even do a mailbag, who knows, part mailbag on next episode. Get all that in at lockedonsox@gmail.com. Sox take on the Royals. Clevinger on the hill. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Hey, everydayers, on the next episode, I will recap Mike Clevinger's outing and hopefully be celebrating a White Sox winner. Appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.